Hi, I'm Shoshi Goldstein-Nissenbaum. Welcome to my podcast, Divorcing with Dignity. And today we're back again with Dr. Miriam Adahan, a S.O.D.A survivor of domestic abuse, with more tips on building resilience within our children, helping them cope with the traumas, distress of divorce. So last session was amazing. We got so many hands-on tachlis. A lot of times we talk about, what happens or the mindset, but we don't have what to do. And the action really grounds us as the parent, right? And actually really helps the child as well. So a few more follow-up questions. And I'm sure, Dr. Adahan, you have a lot to share with us as well. So maybe we could just take a step back, though, and describe how and what are the profound psychological impacts that divorce can have on children living in high conflict homes when the parents are married, or in a divorced home where there's high conflicts? And how does this impact differ based on the child's age and personality?
So I have two books on personality types. One is called Awareness, and one is called Nefesh Adam, Appreciate People. And it has a huge effect. The shaming that goes on in a high conflict family, or where one is, when children don't see two parents respecting each other. They don't learn what love is. So love is three things. It's trust. I trust you that you will not hurt me, that you'll be there to take care of me, to listen to me, to guide me, and to protect me. That's trust. It has to be reliable, dependable, not now and then, in the morning one way, in the afternoon another way. You need an emotionally regulated parents in order to learn how to regulate your own emotions. So love is trust. It's respect. I respect you as a human being. You have value to me. You matter to me. Livriyut. And third is empathy. There has to be communication where a child feels heard, respected. I always tell people, if a child, whatever pain a human being is in, always say the first thing that makes sense. A child's feelings make sense. Our feelings make sense to him. I don't know. I had just 3 days. I don't know, something about Shabbos. Maybe it's about the Chatufim, the kidnapped, the hostages in Gaza, or all the people die. I don't know. Sometimes I go through times where I am just feeling a lot of grief. Some people feel, I'm a type number 4. For those of you who know about awareness.
Anyone who read Awareness knows that you're a 4.
I'm a 4. Anybody who listens to me is probably a 4. None of the other types listen or care so much about emotions. And I just had to hold myself and just say that makes sense. I grew up in a high conflict home where the parents didn't divorce, and I was a mess. Would I have been better off if they had divorced? I don't think so, because neither of them was emotionally regulated. So I really grew up, in a sense, without parents. I was an emotional orphan. So that's the one thing that's really important. If there's one parent, sometimes even a grandparent, that is truly loving and caring and conveys to the child, you matter, you're important. But there has to be something. So whether you're divorced or not, that's not what really counts. What really counts is there's a person who says you matter, you're important. So that's one thing. It's not the divorce. It's the implication that you don't really count and you're just a bother that will really cause kids a lot of pain. Okay, so now if the child is, let's say a child's in type number 9, They're just certain everybody's going to reconcile and they can make peace. And they're just, nothing bothers them. They learn that nothing bothers them. And they're making peace between everybody. That's how they'll handle it. They'll pretend that everybody loves everybody. They'll just think.
Sometimes I'm jealous of those nines.
Me too. Me too. Well, next lifetime, I ordered one. Okay. The next skill goal. Okay. They just don't have, they suppress all their emotions and they really think there's going to be peace and everybody's going to love everybody. And the Arabs
Are they suppressing their emotions, or they
No,
don't
they
interpret
don't
things
have.
the way that we do?
They go into this positive state. Mashiach is coming, so why take anything seriously? It's not even suppressing. There's not a lot of emotion there. There's not a lot of emotion in 8, 9, or 1.
Right.
Or 5.
But the nine is in like a Pollyanna syndrome.
Oh, they love it. Everybody
Where
loves
everything is
everybody.
just like,
oh,
yeah.
How was my childhood was great. Your parents got divorced. Yeah, but they love each other underneath it all. So that's going to be very different than a type number 6 who is going to have constant anxiety and worrying and no trust. And they're going to have a lot of trust issues. And that's going to be different than a type number 4 who's going to go through life with kind of a sense of melancholia and existential aloneness. Or a type number 5 who's just going to see with his books and just get more information. So every type is going to have a different, it's going to affect everybody differently depending on their personality.
Okay.
So you can't say, how does divorce affect kids? There's no such thing. No such thing. And some kids
Would you extend that to any type of trauma? That it's not necessarily trauma, it's the set skill that the child has beforehand to deal
exactly
with the event. So if they come from a place where they had one parent who, at least one parent, right?
Right.
Who was regulated, who they had a positive attachment to.
Right.
You know, if we want, I don't know if you want to get into attachment theory, but
Sure.
they had someone, a rock in their life.
Right? A rock. Now, I, as a 4th, is the most unrock-like person in the world. I'm just, okay. I learned to act like a rock to give stability to my children and grandchildren. And they love that. I don't show emotion. I feel it. Okay. I feel the last 3 days were just very hard, but I just have my heart that I just hold. So the first thing you can do when children express emotion is just hold their hearts and hold your own heart and let them know, I'm not scared to feel feelings. You can feel anything. I can handle it all. You think you have no friends, you think everybody hates you, you think, just hold their heart and hold your own heart, because nobody gets divorced when there's a real heart and real caring. Nobody.
Right.
I think of Noah Argamani, who was released after all these months as a hostage in Gaza. And she looks terrific. I mean, she had a very good attachment with both parents. They gave her a lot of strength. Her mother and her, it was pure love. Her mother really wanted her and cared for her. There's a whole foundation. This girl is amazing. You can't compare her.
Her mother Kilu like waited for her to come home.
Yeah, isn't that something before dying?
There's definitely something there. So what would you recommend when you have one parent who's the centered parent, the regulated parent, and the other parent is, I don't want to get into diagnosis, we'll say unhinged, right?
Right.
And so the parent who is having a temper tantrum, okay, or throwing things, or shaming the other parent or other children. So this disturbs the children, right? So a lot of parents think that, okay, they have to support the other parent no matter what. So they'll say, oh, she didn't eat today, or she had a hard day at work, or he had a hard day at work, or he really loves you, he just doesn't know how to show it. And to me, I always spoke to my children very differently. I would say to them, point out that this is not really how we want to behave. This is not how we're supposed to behave, but everybody messes up sometimes. There's something along that line, but that excusing the behavior is enforcing the behavior.
Exactly.
So
And
you agree with
teaching
that?
kids, right, absolutely. This idea that you have to present a united front. And if the father is yelling or screaming or beating the kids up, or the mother's doing that you have to support them, that's ridiculous. And that teaches children to excuse and justify and tolerate abuse. And then you go to a therapist and the therapist says, love means tolerating abuse and insanity. That's how you show you love somebody. No, this is not, don't call it love. I'd rather say your mother or your father is in their baby brain and they
Right,
don't know how to go up. That's better.
right. Just like, when people have not religious relatives, so they say to them, oh, like, they don't know any better.
Right.
They just don't know any better. They didn't go to Beis Yaakov, or they didn't have a good education like you do, or they weren't raised in a religious home, or they never learned. We don't excuse their behavior. We just point out that they can't. They don't know how to.
They don't have any tools.
They're lacking tools.
Kids do not want to believe that there's such a thing as deliberate sadism. I read
I
the
think
other day.
most adults don't want to believe it either.
Right.
Our
They said no parent
our,
likes to punish a child. I said, what do you mean no parents like? I know tons of parents who punish their kids in the most sadistic manner possible. What do you
our
mean?
whole country doesn't want to believe that, right? I
That's
mean,
right. The whole country doesn't want to believe there's evil.
when the war first broke out, I read an article from, I don't remember her name, a professor from Soroka, who she is in charge of the Machlaka Leida, the delivery room. And she was writing an article about what it was like to deliver babies on October 7th. And she commented that as the morning progressed, she realized like this wasn't just a regular attack. There was something different about this attack. And I'm thinking to myself, a regular attack? That's
Right.
abuse. That is exactly how abuse.
Exactly. Right.
You think, oh, like, oh, he or she only did X, Y, and Z. It's not such a big deal. And then all of a sudden, X, Y, and Z turns into, a nuclear bomb or October 7th, where
Right.
this abuse had been taking place for years.
For
And it was
years.
just like, okay, so we have Iron Dome. Okay, so you run to your shelter. Okay, so like, and
No big deal.
right,
Havlaga.
not
We're so proud of ourselves for our restraint while
restraint, right.
they're making yesterday. I had a relative call me about another relative, a younger man in his 40s, and she was telling me how he just got divorced. I had 2 calls like this week where men were divorcing and the mother had alienated all the children and impoverished the husband. And the
I
husbands, both
unfortunately see
husbands,
this all the time, and I see it the opposite. I
opposite
see
men, women, right.
fathers who completely alienate the children against their mother,
That's
who
right.
is the stable parent.
That's
And
right.
and the opposite. Sometimes the father is the stable parent, and
That's right.
and you have
Somebody has to be stable here, and we have to say, we have to use the E word. Evil does exist. And
why are we so afraid to use that word? Why are we so afraid to say that this person is
this is wrong, it's
wrong?
bad, and it's evil, it's sadistic.
Well, why are we so
So
afraid to say that?
people don't want to, they've done research on children who will see like a movie where there's a villain, and they'll say the good people in the movie are good on the outside and good on the inside, and the villains are evil on the outside, but they're good on the inside. People like I'll send you an article I just wrote about this. The fantasy that makes us feel either loved, powerful, or secure. We like these fantasies. People are really good on the inside. Everybody needs to be forgiven. It soothes us while they're building their 400 miles of tunnels and undermining us and waiting for everything to collapse. It's like while the termites are getting ready to just destroy the whole foundation, nobody wants to believe it. First, one of the things is that there was a rabbi named Rabbi Benjamin. in the 3rd century. And he said, if people could see how many Shindalids, how many entities, evil entities exist in the world, they would lose their minds. They couldn't bear it. I think a lot of therapists are in this situation. They are afraid that people will lose their minds if they see what their spouses really are, how evil they really are, sadistic. I think some of them are 9s and they just believe that everybody can reconcile and everybody is good. They're just naive. And then the other thing is that they make their money by stringing people along instead of giving them tools. So those are the 3 reasons. And I'm here to, I think since October 7th, it's always been that I have said the people in the dark triad, the really vindictive, vicious ones, are sort of like these evil entities that they look like people, but they are heartless. Nobody wanted to believe this before October 7th. People didn't want to see it's too painful. We see all the pain and all the trauma and all the anxiety and depression. How do we live in this world after October 7th? And I'm here to say, recognize when you are dealing with an entity, a heartless, callous entity, because the rules are totally different. With a regular person, we talk, we share, we expect trust, respect, and empathy. We can expect it, we can give it and take it. But the minute you are with an entity, they're sort of subhuman, non-human, I don't know what word to give it. I think Shindalid is the best word. That's what the Chazal used for callous, heartless, manipulative controllers. That's the word that Chazal used. So I'm here to tell people, yes, they exist and they are here. Open your eyes, recognize it, and I'll help you, give you tools. Okay.
So when the child is witnessing high
Yes.
conflict between their
Right.
parents,
Right.
and I just want to say one thing, not disagreements. I mean, I think children should see that their parents
Yeah, we have
different
disagreements. You
ideas.
know, I don't feel like going away, or there's always arguments about religion and cleanliness
And
and
learn how to work it out,
yeah,
because
we'll
that's the
compromise.
respect.
Right. Okay.
That's part of respect and part
Right.
of love, right? That
Right.
you think differently than I do, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
my husband
So
and
it's
I
good
were
for
on
them to
like
see. Yeah.
2 different pages in a lot of things, you know, in politics, we don't vote for the same party. We
Wow.
don't, you know, he does this, he eats certain hechsherim, I eat a lot more than he does, right? And
Okay.
that's okay. My kids know that that's fine, because he respects that I eat what I want to eat. I respect that he eats, you know, we found the common ground, we have rules in the house. But I don't, and that goes with everything. I think that having 2 different opinions is actually, I'm
It's
not
actually good. That's right.
eaten by somebody else, and nobody is eating me, so to speak.
That's right.
But we live harmoniously with you're you and I'm me, and we live together.
That's right.
But when children see the opposite of that, when they see high conflict, right?
And they learn that
between their
that's where the
parents,
people pleasing comes from. If I don't please you, then I'm going to be punished or abandoned or rejected. Something terrible is going to happen if I can't make you happy.
I have no value.
That's right. So when you're dealing with with the dark triad, the narcissists and the sociopaths and the psychopaths, there's first of all, you feel toxic shame around them because they are unreachable and unpleasable. They have maybe 3 or 4 emotions. I have 3,000. I'm not going to share my 3,000 emotions as a 4 with somebody with 3 emotions. So in the toxic, in the dark triad, you'll get people who will experience animal pleasure. When they eat, they're happy to eat. Okay. That kind of animal, or they're driving, or they get something new. There's an animal pleasure.
Or they hurt somebody.
Right. Or they get glee out of hurting other people. There's a certain kind of perverse glee. Or you'll get all the shades of anger. They're sullen, they're grouchy, they're angry, they're disappointed, they have disapproval, they're ballistic, it's just this whole, they're jealous. There's just a lot of rage and anger and all the shades of that. So there's really only three things there. And then we're trying to get through to them.
Right.
That's it. Stop trying to talk. Don't even try. It's useless.
So a child who's living in this shetach milchama, they're in like a war zone. Okay.
Yes.
What's going, how is that child's baby brain or reptilian brain, right? Versus how do they become a stable adult? Even if they have one parent or a teacher or a therapist or somebody in their lives, a grandparent who's the grounding, regulated person, they're still living in a war zone. How does the brain develop?
Okay. So the brain, I know that I have brain damage because I rarely saw my parents. And when I saw them, it was a disaster. Okay, it wasn't pleasant. So I really grew up as an emotional orphan. And they stayed together, but it was and then I married that. But I was able to do a lot, and I have all the 20 symptoms of somebody who grew up in that environment. What I do is I take my pain. First of all, I accept it. When I need to feel my grief, I feel it. And I say, Miriam, it makes sense that you feel the grief, or it makes sense that you feel anxious. First of all, that's number one to tell kids. It makes sense, whatever you're feeling. Number two, I turned it into a mission. I turned my pain into a mission. I'll give you two little examples that everybody can use immediately. I went to visit I have grandkids. They just turned 5. And one of them came out of the bathroom. He washed his hands, he dried his hands, and the towel fell. And I was watching this, I was in the living room on the couch, and I said to him, I said, there's a towel on the floor. Now your baby brain says, don't pick it up. But your Bulgarian brain says, yes, pick it up. And I said, I wonder who's going to win. And I didn't care because I would go pick it up or whatever. I wouldn't make a big deal out of it. But I want him to know that there's a war going on. And I'm not criticizing him. I'm just curious. Is the baby brain going to win and just leave it on the floor? Or is the smart brain going to win and he's going to pick it up? And he went and he picked it up. And he's doing like this. And I always take wherever I go, I have my little package of salashim, and I gave him a salash for picking it up, and I made a big deal out of it. So that's one thing we could do. We could make a big deal out of these little things where we let people know that there's a baby brain and a Bulgarian. This is just so important.
And we can do that for adult children as well.
Absolutely.
For ourselves as well.
That's right. I have a 20-year-old in the Air Force. He had a big disappointment, and I gave him a salash for accepting Ratzon Hashem. He can think it's stupid, but I wrote it.
They don't think it's stupid.
And I put it in an envelope, and I gave it to him. And he's, tall, 6 foot something, and I gave it to him. It was for me. I want to be, because of my childhood, because what I didn't get, it's called Shuvat HaMishkal. Everything I didn't get, I want to give others. Okay, I'll give you another example. I was in the vegetable section in Rami Levi, and I saw a little boy. He was like a chunky kid. He was about 8 or 9, but very chunky and big. And his mother, tiny little lady. Okay, I just heard him say to her, "You have to buy me a shako right now." And he's yelling at her and stamping his feet right there in the vegetable section. And I went over, I just went in the vegetable section with him, and I said, honey, you have a baby brain down here. And you know how your baby brain talks? And I imitated him. I want a shako right now, and you have to get it for me. And I said, and you also have a smart brain up here, and your smart brain, you know how your smart brain talks? Your smart brain says, Ima, could you get me a shako? And he stopped and he smiled. And his father didn't realize it was his father up ahead buying the peppers, but his father turned around and smiled at me. Now, interestingly, the father smiled, the boy smiled, the mother said, No, it's just his age. I said, no, he's not 2 years old. He's about 8 or 9. He knows how to act. And he smiled at me again, the boy. The mother wanted to enable the child. It's very interesting.
That's a very good example, because a lot of times divorced parents, they're afraid to be the
The
boundary
bad
setter,
one. Right. But this is setting
because
boundaries very nicely. The
right, but
boy,
even with that, they're scared. They're
that's
scared
right.
that they're in a popularity contest, and
That's
they're
right.
scared that their
And there's
ratings are going to drop.
competition. That's right. There's a lot of competition. But the little boy, and I was, going around Rami letting by, and he kept seeing me and smiling at me. In 60 seconds, I explained the world to him. And from now on, when people, you have to buy me, if anybody does that, he'll know that that person is in their baby brain and not using their Bogier brain, their smart brain. And we can do this wherever we go. So I use my pain, the pain of my past, in order to help others. At the same time, I recognize that. You want to know what the damage is? You want to know the 20 signs? Or you
Let's
don't want
hear
to
it.
say?
Let's start. Yeah.
Okay. For a long time, I had trouble expressing myself. I don't even know that I have needs. We don't know we have needs, and we have trouble expressing them. Okay. Another one is we're always seeking validation from the outside. Do you like me? How was this webinar? Was it okay? Did I talk too much, too little? I even have dreams where I'm talking too much, or whatever, or nobody likes me. That feeling, nobody likes me and nobody cares. It's so deep. Nobody likes me and nobody cares. I'm nothing to nobody. So I walked around for
So when
years.
that thought comes up, right, a child tells us that, or we feel like that about us.
Right, right.
Give me an example of how do we take it from that? That is a baby brain thought as well, right?
Right.
Because it's not necessarily based on truth. It's based on a lot of assumptions.
Well, like a lot of people don't care, honey. A lot of people just care about themselves. And that's really sad. Our whole Torah is give to others, care about others, be concerned with others. But very few people are there. So I want you to care about yourself. And that word, do you like me? Because if you don't like me, you might kill me. That's the feeling of children who are beaten, that they're going to be killed. They're going
Those
to be
children are
buried alive.
extremely vulnerable. They're vulnerable to do
That's
all
right.
kinds of, to be sexually abused, or to
Yes.
go into cults, or to,
Yes. I have a
hook
lot
up
of
with,
people that were in religious cults.
steal to
Yeah,
please other people,
that's right. You better please.
and of course to get into really bad marriages.
Yeah. And then wonder, do you like me? Do you like me? Do you like me? So we have to get people to, I still keep my daily my little pinkas where I write down the miracles. At one point I said, Hashem, I can't live in this world unless I see a sign every single day that you love me. At least one being has to love me, and you have to give me a sign. So I started writing down the miracles. It could just be a sunset or seeing a flower or something. Okay. And the other side, I write down my victories. What I did, that this was to build myself up and to give myself inner parents that say, I know you didn't matter to anybody. I know they wanted to kill you. So it makes sense that you're scared that people don't want you and that you don't matter to anybody. This is the one thing that comes out of the people we see a lot, the people that the release hostages. Say, we didn't matter to them. They could kill us and it didn't matter. We had nothing mattered more, like it could be a piece of dust. That not mattering, I'm nothing to nobody, nobody cares. It is the most painful thing in the world, and it's what we try the hardest. Do I matter to you? We want to know that other people, we matter to them. But everybody is involved in their own lives, and if we don't matter, and that's the reality, then we have to live with that. Yes, I might not matter to other people. And to the dark triad, I am just supply. I'm here to provide services. I don't know. glad, whatever, I'm just here to supply. And if I leave, no big deal. Remember, they only have 3 emotions.
Right.
If I die, it really doesn't matter. So that's the second thing, is that always seeking validation. Do I matter? Do you really care? Now, what will happen with a person who has gone through this, it's like, you said you would call at 3 and it's 3:05, so I don't matter. And this will extend for a lifetime. You said you would be here at 6 and you're not here. You said you would do this, you said that, and it'll pop up. Oh, so I don't matter to you? You didn't remember my birthday or my anniversary?
That's part of the problem when trust is violated in such a deep way that
We're gonna
and,
live with it.
and children are very black and white, and so are many
Right.
hurt
Yeah.
adults. Whereas, a person could say, I'm coming, or I'm gonna be there at 3, and we're humans, we come late sometimes. And the child, who's now an adult, who never had that trust, to them, it's not you came at 3:05. It's like the end of the world.
That's right.
I
It's
see that
very hard.
with with some of my clients, not a lot. I would say some, a small, not such a large percentage, but
Oh,
some
you didn't call when you said you would.
and they I could be caught up with another client, right? We're in the middle of an emergency. I had to go to the bathroom and I couldn't take the call. And to them, it's like devastating.
End of
And
the world.
now that you're talking, I'm like, well, that's because they're married to people who have taught them that you can't really trust anybody
Anybody.
because no one's ever going to be there for you.
Nobody
When a
really
person
cares.
shares their most intimate feelings with somebody from the 3 dark triad, right? And they have not only show no empathy, but they use that information to hurt in return. So of course that person doesn't trust anybody, and of course they don't trust me, and of course they're suspicious of, what I'm paying you so much money, why can't you answer my call? Right? I don't work after 5 o'clock. I don't actually have to answer your call, right? I have my own boundaries,
You have to say that
my
makes
own life.
sense.
But to
Right.
them, it's devastating rejection of not being able to.
And it's good to say, well, why do you think I didn't answer your call?
Right.
What was in your mind? What was your accusation? What was your feeling? And that whatever you went through as a child, it's gonna pop up again throughout your life. Don't believe all these people who say, oh, we erase traumas. I have all these people going to people who erase traumas. They're just taking money. We don't erase traumas. It's going to pop up again. Okay. So, we have to, that's when we need the heart. We need to just say that really makes a lot of sense. I understand. And people that have been through trauma as a child and then they go through it again as in a marriage where they couldn't trust anybody. And by the way, when a parent is angry or hits a child, okay, when they're screaming and hitting, the child feels like he's going to be killed. It's not a small, oh, it just got angry. The feeling is you're gonna be buried alive. You're buried alive in this house. You
And
can't
I think
express
that's true
yourself.
I think that's true even as adult children.
Oh, absolutely.
Even in a child right, who's
Right.
30, 40, 50 years old, being yelled at by their parents.
Or by their
Feels
spouse.
like a 2-year-old being
That's right. And it goes to the same place in the brain. If I give you a slap on your face, or I tell you, oh, shut up, you talk too much, leave me alone. That goes to exactly the same place in the brain as if somebody stabbed you.
Wow.
The
Well, I guess
pain
that
is
makes
so,
sense. Hamal b'nes penei chavero, a person who
right.
shames his friend.
It's like he murdered him.
It's like he murdered him
Right.
because that's actually touching the same place in the brain.
And that is what the dark triad does. They hold people hostage. They take
For years.
hostages
Yeah.
and they bury them alive and they destroy their spirit. The 8s will try to destroy your body. The 6s will destroy your mind and tell you that you're crazy. That's the other thing, is that anybody who shows any emotion in our world of invulnerable, unemotional generals and people at the top, they show no emotion. We're showing emotion, so we're the crazy ones. So they will stab, we're bleeding, we're hemorrhaging. Oh, your mother's crazy, or your father. The people that care are called crazy. It's crazy to care, because it is crazy to care for the dark triad. They don't care.
Hmm.
The one who cares is called crazy.
I guess that means that the dark triad actually knows that they're the dark triad somewhere deep inside.
That's right. They don't, and they're proud of themselves for not caring, callous and uncaring. Okay, you want some more? We've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, let's do 1 or 2 more.
Okay. There's a feeling that love is dangerous, that people get too close who want to care, that's dangerous. There's a feeling of, a lot of people will come to me for therapy and they'll draw a wall. There's a feeling there's a wall between them and other people. That wall was put up to protect them, and then they can't take the wall down. And anybody who gets too close, so there's a place in the brain called the superior colliculus that says human beings are dangerous. Don't get close.
So they seclude themselves because that's the only
Yeah,
safe
there's a
place.
lot of isolation.
Right. And they can do that even within a marriage as well.
Of course.
I find that I've had actually a few couples who came to me for mediation where the basis of their divorce was that both of them were great people, no abuse, but one of them had, because of trauma or what, had so isolated that there actually wasn't a relationship. So they
That's
were
right.
married, but it was so unfulfilling for the healthier spouse.
That's right.
Because they're like, you live in your own planet. You're not married to me in a relationship way. Yeah, we had a wedding and we have a ketubah and we're officially married, but there's no actual relationship here. And the person who was the spouse that was isolating themselves, they couldn't even realize that they were destroying their marriage.
With that cold, right, the coldness.
Right. And they weren't doing it because they were part of the dark triad. They were doing it because being vulnerable is dangerous. Not being perfect is dangerous.
Right. That perfectionism is another one of the signs.
And living with a perfectionist is one of the most
deadly, because you're always critical.
Yeah.
There's only one perfect that's up there. Okay.
Right.
Right. So perfectionism is a form of abuse, self-abuse and other abuse, and the constant criticism, because nobody can please you. And you are, even a person who wants to love is unpleasable and unreachable. That's what you're talking about. That the caring spouse who wants to have a caring relationship feels that the other person is unreachable and unpleasable. And that's true. They isolated at very early in life. There's no what's called object constancy. There's no internalized feeling that somebody really cares about me. So I'm living a fake life. That coldness is horrible. Horrible.
And it's not always intentional. It's born because of the experience, like you described.
That wall.
It's a horrible thing between parents and children, between spouses, for those who have to live with the person living in their ivory tower.
That's right.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Adahan.
I hope I have the rest of the list here.
Okay, part 3, Bezrat Hashem. Thank you for listening.
Cool too.